Well, hello. Tonight, we're going to talk about displaying data. You see, as a statistician, you collect data. So earlier today, I asked a bunch of students how old their parents were. And I collected 20 data points, various ages. Now, I could leave it like this. I could write an essay saying that, well, the first student's parent was 44. The second student had 3 parents. They were 52, 58, and 44. And as you can see, you'd be pretty bored pretty quickly. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up with a way to display this information that allows us to see if there's trends, to make some conclusions, to summarize the data. So we're going to summarize the data with what's called a histogram. Okay? Now, you've seen histograms before, and we're going to talk about how to set them up tonight. Okay? So here we go. It's really a 4-step process, and it goes something like this. Step 1, you need to determine the number of intervals. So let's talk about this problem over here. Ages of parents. I might say, okay, well, should I have 1 interval for every age? Well, that doesn't make any sense. Should I have an interval that says age 30 to 80? Well, that doesn't make any sense because everybody's would fit in there, right? So the question is, what about the number of intervals? 5 is usually a pretty good start. So why don't we say that in our case, we're going to do 5 intervals. Okay. 2, let's determine the width of each interval, or sometimes called the class width. Not class of you guys, but each group is a class. Here's how you do it. You take your maximum minus your minimum divided by the number of intervals. Okay? That determines your class width. Okay. So here we go then. Step 3. All right, so here's what we want to know. If a value is on the boundary, I have a tough time finding a marker that writes tonight, round up. And you'll see what that means in just a second. And finally, the most important, scale and label. Okay? So let's go ahead and see how that process works with this problem. Okay, so here's a bunch of ages of people. Okay, what's the maximum value in that group of numbers there? We'll look at that and we'll say, oh, that's 75. The minimum value here would be 35. Now, we know we want to have 5 intervals. So 75 minus 35, that's 40 divided by 5, that's 8. There's my width. There's my width. Now, we're going to do this on a computer a little bit later, and the computer will automatically determine your width based on your data. But for us, we're going to use 8. Okay, now it's just a matter of coming up with a frequency distribution. We know how to do this, right? We're going to set up and we're going to make our distribution, and we're going to see if this works. Okay, so in order to come up with our scale and label, I've got to know how many values are in each class. Okay, so now pay attention and watch as I do this. Okay, so we've determined the number of intervals. We've calculated our class width. If the value is on the boundary, we're going to round up, or I should say round up. If the value is on the boundary, not really round up, but move up. So in other words, it's going to go in the next category. And then scale and length. Okay, so let's do that here with this data. I'll just give you a second to get that down. Okay. So class width is 8. Minimum value is 35, right? So we're going to start with that minimum value, 35. Now this is important. Pay attention. We're not going to say 35 to 43 because then we're not going to have enough values. This becomes the beginning of the next group. So this is 35 to 42. The next group here would be 8 more, 51. So that's 43 to 50. The next group here is 8 more, 59. This would be 51 to 58. Next group here, 67. So that's 59 to 66. Next group here, 75. This is 67 to 74. And this would be 75 to 82. So this is what? Age and frequency. Look at that. Does that not look familiar? That's kind of like the two-way table, isn't it? Except it's just sort of a one-way table because I'm only dealing with age and frequency, or I'm dealing with one column of a two-way table. Okay? So here we go. We've got our data, and now we just count. So you're doing the summarizing for the people. You're saying to your readers, you're not really smart enough to look at this, all these numbers, and draw any useful conclusions on your own. So I'm going to do it for you. Now you may think, well, aren't you patronizing me by doing that? Well, the answer is no. That's why these books are written, right? These books tell us all the different ways to summarize that data. Okay, well, let's go. 35 to 42. How many do we have? Okay, so here we go. I have none. 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4. See if you agree with me. Now remember, I got 20 data points, so I'm hoping this adds up to 20 here. How about 43 through 50? 43 to 50. 1. So now 43, what do we do with the 43? The 43 is going to stay in this column, right? If I got the 51, that would go to this column. That's what I meant by move up. So that's the idea here. Okay, so 43, so where am I? Okay, 43. That's 1. What did I say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I believe. How about from 51 to 58? 51 to 58, so that would be 1. Now, there's 58. 58 is still in this column here, because see, we moved up. The 59, that's the move up. So this idea here, what I did here with the numbers, corresponds with this rule. Values on the boundary move up. Okay, now I have to start over again because I've forgotten where I was. 51 to 58. 1, 2, 3, 4. 59 to 66. 1, 2, 3, 67 to 74, I think I've just got one. Okay, it's just one. All right, so somehow I've miscounted here, and I'm sure you guys have found my mistake, but just give me a second to find it. 35 to 42. So 35 to 42, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 43 to 50, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 6. That one should be 6. 51 to 58, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's good. Oh, I think I left off a 60 and 61. All right, so 59 to 66, 1, 2, 3. And then 67 to 74, 1. That's 20. I'm still at 18. And 75 to 82 is 1, so that's 19. Okay. One, 2, 3, 4. Right? And then 43 to 50. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so there we go. All right. Now, thankfully, we've done that. So there's our frequency distribution. So the question, now that could be good enough. That could be good enough. But now what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a histogram with that information. So here we go. I know my intervals are going to be 35 to 42, right? 43 to 50. So there's 43, 35, 43. There's 51. Here's 59, sorry. Here's 67. Here's 75. And that, what did we say this one was going to be? 83. Sorry, it's 8. So that would be 83. Okay, now, here's how this goes. On this side here, what do? We're going from 1 to 7. So we'll start off at 0. Maybe we'll go to 10 here. So there's 5, 4, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you can maybe tick those off if you want. Okay? So here we go. In the 35 to 43. So you notice 35 to 43, the 43 gets counted with the next group. That's why there's 4 in this group. 43 to 51, that's going to be 7 because 51 is counted in the next group. That's why on our frequency table, you see what I'm talking about here? This is a little bit tricky. And this, I'll tell you, this is where students get a little confused. So you might just want to go watch the video again. But 51 to 59, 59 gets counted in the next group. That's why we stopped at 58. And now we're back down to 4 again. 59 to 67, 67's in the next group, so we stop at 66. This gets us to 3. And then finally, 67 to 74, that was 1. And then 75 is in the next group, so that's also 1. And there is your histogram. And now you can look at this and see, oh, the biggest group is here, 43 to 51. I apologize for my markers, but the supply chain is bad. But there's your histogram, and you just did it. Now, of course, the calculator does all of this in like 1/10 of the time. But I want you to understand what your calculator's doing when it makes that histogram. So we've done a couple things here. We determined the number of intervals, we determined the class width, and we put the value on the boundary, and we scaled and labeled. All right? So this is how we're going to do it. All right? Now, we did end up with an extra interval here because of the big number, but that's okay, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's okay. That's okay. All right? Scale and label. Let's label here. This would be age, and this would be frequency. There you go. And that, my friends, is a histogram.